All right. Looks like we're live, man.
I think that worked.
All right. Make sure my phone's off.
Yeah, right. We'll shut off all distractions here. Since we're live here, maybe ask all the attendees to shut off distractions too.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Right. Yeah. No guarantee in here.
I guess
we'll give folks a couple more minutes to join in.
All right.
Before kicking things off too much.
All right. No problem.
And you're out in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah. Up pretty much close to Minneapolis. So we're just located about 45, 50 minutes north of that. There's a river that basically divides the two states. And so you just go over the river and straight north. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good area.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that 70s show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's us.
That's funny. It looks like our nameplate switched a little bit. So anyone that's watching, I'm labeled as Dr. John, and Dr. John is labeled as me. So,
all right.
So we can channel swap it today.
All right, that sounds good to me. Oh, I've left the room. That's cool. Okay. Dr. John has joined the room. Okay.
Now that I'm here officially, why don't we get started?
All right, let's do it. Hey, I can't see you. Is there a reason for that?
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Sweet. All right.
First time using Webinar Jam in a co-host capacity. So.
All right.
Everyone, bear with us.
It should be pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're set here. I won't touch any buttons. Cool. So appreciate everyone joining in. I'm Xavier Jaillet with Hal. You guys all know my voice, but it might be the first time you see my face. So pleasure to be back here and sharing some more information about the extraction and cannabis manufacturing industries with you all. And happy to say I'm joined today with Dr. John of Extract Lab in United Sciences.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I really appreciate you joining us and helping us launch our inaugural interview and co-host webinar series. Hopefully be the first of many for us here.
Yeah. We did an Instagram live maybe about 30 minutes ago. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's pretty
nice.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, so are they tapped into us here then? So we got folks on Instagram Live.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. So yeah, that'll work. So
we'll leave that up to the marketing and social media folks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I was saying to you this morning, our audio video guy, actually his wife is having a baby and it happened this morning. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, oh, well, how do I get this all set up? So it was kind of, we had a little bit of an issue, but we got it. See, chemists can do audio video.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, technology is within reach. Plug the cords into the right holes.
That's right. That's right. Well, it was a little bit, I don't know. It turned out that you and I, when we were talking, what it was the mic was muted, or the headphones were muted, so we had an issue anyway. Well, we solved it. We're problem solvers this morning.
Yeah, one of my before I was at Hal, I kind of worked a little bit more in the software technology sector, and one of my favorite things to say is that humans are by and large the worst enemy of all technology, and human error is what prevents most things from happening. But
that was true this morning. Cool. All right.
So let's jump into. Well, actually, first I want to do a little shout out to both of our company's websites and social media pages. So anyone that's listening today, if you want to find Extract Lab and more information from Dr. John, he actually has a great educational series of podcasts he does himself. He's got a great YouTube channel. So if anything we discuss today, if you're looking for a little bit more information on that, or even want to see some visuals to help assist understanding some of the concepts we talk about, feel free to check that out at extractlab.com. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all the social media handles are just at Extract Lab.
Yeah, at Extract Lab, right. And if you go to Extract Lab, EXTRAKT lab.com /calculators, there's also lots of calculators on there. So people have been really honing in on those. We've had thousands of people on our calculators page, and so we must have a dozen of them on there. Well, no, wait, that's exaggeration. I think we got 8 or 9 of them, and then we have dozens of them in the works. So we're just kind of we like to calculate stuff. So, get out your slide rule, your TI-85, use the calculator. Use TI-85.
What are those calculators typically for?
What was it? Oh, well, we have it for like, hemp processing, for example. Okay. A guy could put in like the size of his crop and it would output how much distillate or how much isolate you get out of there. It has, we have like a cost comparison. So you can do like cost comparison guide between like ethanol and CO2. It kind of tells you what the differences are in costs and how you would look at that over time, operating parameters. We also have like a tincture calculator there. So anyway, how to make a tincture and then how to dose, like a dosing calculator. Right. That's been really popular. So people want to know, okay, I weigh 150 pounds. How much should my CBD dosage be? So we got some of the information. We put it all together into a calculator so people can put their information in there. It's fun.
Very cool. Yeah, that's something that can be used commercially or, by at-home users. So
right. Yeah.
Great tool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good on you guys for putting that out there and promoting that.
That's fun. It's fun to put some useful tools out there that, that people like to use. And
yeah. It drives traffic to the website.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Grace, let's get into a little bit of your personal background. I thought that'd be a good place to start before we jump into more kind of extract lab and then talk a little bit more about CO2 processing, which for everyone on the line today, it's kind of the planned agenda. We may go off the track a little bit here and there, but hopefully we'll get to talking about CO2 in about 20 minutes. But yeah, so starting with you, John, we refer to you as Dr. John. So I have to ask, is there a PhD behind there? Is that just a moniker that you've adopted over the years?
It's kind of like the industry moniker.
You're right, yeah.
Doctors who are not really doctors. No, I actually earned that one. That's blood, sweat, and tears went into that one. So one of those guys who, just basically went to college. I did a biochemistry degree. They're two separate degrees, but went on then to get a chemistry PhD in the area of separation science. So that's that. I've been doing that for my entire life, the separation science side of it. Yeah. It's kind of like a hybrid between chemistry and chemical engineering. It was a lot of fun. I liked it because it was very, you had the theory side of it, but then you had the practical side of it. We ended up, building things when I was in graduate school, and it was fun. We tested it out. We did publications, decided that I really liked the area of, fluidics and, that whole area. So just continued on in that area. My first job was basically doing gas liquid separations with membranes. And we did a bunch of work there. There was like an extrusion line. So we'd run like membrane extrusions. You'd have like a plastic that had little tiny holes in it. Okay. And then you would put those in contact with a liquid, and then the gas would dissolve and go through would actually go through the membranes and get removed from the, taking bubbles out of soda. I guess that would probably be, yeah. So we did stuff like that. And then, it was a lot of fun. We ended up doing that all over the world. That was a lot of fun. We, went to Japan a lot and worked with great engineers there, worked with great German and Swiss engineers on various things. A lot of it was just how do you make their pumps work really well. So that's what that was, and all related specifically to separation science. And so that's kind of my corporate work that I did.
Right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was more analytical than anything. Okay. I don't know. Have you been in the oil and gas world at all yourself? Or
so funny enough, I did. I spent a year in oil and gas, but on the safety side of things.
Okay.
So not really the industry and the process engineering.
Yeah, you have to be a card carrying safety certificate holder there.
Well, yeah, you think about the cannabis industry, and that's kind of, I see one of the pre-existing kind of defining industries out there right now is oil and gas and volatile chemicals. And you go to a refinery and you're like, one day I can see this being a massive CBD extraction plant. Safety is definitely key when you have that much volatile chemicals or solvents under pressure, things like that.
Right.
Especially when it comes to CO2.
Right.
Sitting around. So safety.
It's kind of Yeah, when I was doing some mining work early on in my career too, where I went to mining, and that's where you had to get all your certifications and everything. And we were actually that was kind of an interesting story. We were trying to measure the amount of cyanide that was in the tailings pond, so the ducks wouldn't fly in and die.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So
measure and then remediate if there's too much.
Well, yeah, they had they used hydrogen peroxide to remediate, and the issue there was just like any other system. If you have cyanide and you're dosing it in, you're trying to dissolve it. You want to have enough cyanide there so you're dissolving all the gold, right? Okay, that makes sense. But if you don't have some way to measure how much excess cyanide you have, you get a lot of cyanide in the tailings ponds, is what they called it. Yeah. And so what they had to do is they wanted to overdose it, and then they wanted to add hydrogen peroxide in to basically destroy the cyanide after the excess cyanide. So that was kind of cool. But the ducks didn't like it too much because it wasn't really linked really well. So you have to have a sensor that links them together, otherwise it doesn't work, right? So they were. Yeah, that was interesting. Was in some copper mining too, doing some copper mining things. And we made sensors. We also made some, this is after I got out of corporate America. We did a whole bunch of different projects for different companies. I think we did a project for Exxon. We worked for NASA. What else did we have? We had just a whole bunch of, kind of like Ecolab type people, where we built some systems, like, for example, we did a fluorescence system for NASA. And actually, I think that the actual equipment that we made a fluorometer, which is a detector to measure worms. Basically that went up in space and was there for about maybe 5-6 years. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Worms. Yeah.
Yeah. So they want to know how worms.
Space.
Yes, exactly. The Guardians. Yeah, it's yes, exactly. Orbiting our planet, keeping us safe from all evil.
Space worms.
Yeah, space.
And so how did you transition into cannabis then? And kind of the current iteration of, I know United Science and Extract Lab and all that. So how did you come to where you are now?
Well, it was kind of what we were doing a bunch of, like I said, work for various companies. We had our own products. We made a non-carbon carbon. We had a bunch of stuff like that. And a pal of mine from college came and said, "Hey, I'm going to go do this cannabis thing in Minnesota." And wanted to know if I wanted to join in with him and try to get it going. Which basically, I said yes, I would do that. So we wrote the licenses together. He put a lot of the political stuff together, the business side. I kind of focused in on the technical side. He was a medical doctor, a very good medical doctor. And anyway, right now, so we won the license, and then that was the point in time that United Science started to build out facilities, and this was in basically 2015. So we did. We were doing chromatography separations for broad spectrum at that time. We did on a scale, at scale. We made our own extractors, and we had full formulations with capsules, pills, tinctures, vapor pens, things like that. And that now is a multi-state operation, and it's publicly traded in Toronto on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's named Vireo Health is the name of the company. Thanks. And I was kind of involved in one other license. I was involved in the New York license, getting that going. And essentially, what happened there is I just okay, I'm going to go out and serve the rest of the world. So that's what I did. I went. Canada at that time was just kind of blowing up, and so we got a whole bunch of Canadian customers, and a lot of the early Canadian customers that are big on the Toronto Stock Exchange that everybody knows about. Those were some of our first customers. So it was, we'd had a really good run and continue to be pretty dominant, in Canada and in the U.S. And the hemp wave really has taken, kind of over at least 50% of our business now is just focused on hemp, which I kind of didn't expect. But we've been getting, our solutions are bigger. They're just larger and larger and larger. We've been doing, our quotations are getting, huge, so, the amount of work that we're doing for one client. And so it's interesting, in the old days, we just basically sold to farmers, so, and farmers, they would, they'd maybe have they'd have a small, outdoor grow, or they'd have an indoor grow, and all the equipment was, fairly small. And then people started to want to scale up. In California, we were part of that wave, people scaling up. And that was where we first started to do a ton a day. That was back in 2017 of cannabis trim. So that was kind of cool.
Hemp biomass, like actual?
No, that was actual cannabis trim. So it would come in at 7, 8, 9%, something like that. Yeah, it was just a matter of, just a matter of throughput. And so, that was pretty good. So we started doing that, and then that kind of led us into some larger installations and larger systems. So,
I've seen some of the more kind of modern, commercial applications, and some of those facilities are monstrous. It's impressive the throughput,
right?
And, what they're getting through there. Yeah,
right.
Impressive. And actually, it's funny because we've noticed a significant uptick in the hemp industry and kind of hemp specific clients coming our way as well. We got our start, definitely working more with licensed THC businesses in Colorado,
right?
But we actually just released a kind of a hemp specific product line, Class 1 Division 2 as opposed to Class 1 Division 1,
right?
Because a lot of the time they're working with supercritical CO2 and then doing some post processing with ethanol, and so there's not much need for that Class 1 Division 1,
right?
And so we've seen a significant shift, and I like to call it like hemp 2.0, kind of this new wave.
Right.
It's not just the rogue farmers; it's actually something that's sanctioned, and all the states are kind of gearing up for it. And now you see a CBD shop at the corner of every street.
Seems like that, I mean, it's still in its nascent stages, I think. I mean, we're you're dealing right now with like a $5 billion market right now, and it's expected to grow up to what, 26, 27 billion dollars in the next 3 years, something like that. So I mean, we're kind of all on a the market dynamics, things are still growing, things are expanding. There's going to be lots of opportunities I see with kind of more of a local hemp, a local, kind of like a boutique hemp,
craft approach almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope that that's the way it goes. There's always going to be the major national brands that kind of get into it and start to sell. But, right now, the way that the market is and the way it's regulated, there's enough uncertainty there that's kind of keeping those national brands at bay. And it's really giving a lot of the small business, an opportunity to expand their business. I'm all for that. So,
absolutely.
We put in hundreds of small businesses into business, and that's really great. Some of them do really well. They expand. They get more and more employees. And some of them stay small. 1-2 man shop, that type of thing. So, I mean, that's what I like to see. Otherwise, it seems like all the profits then go to Wall Street instead of Main Street. So we'd like to have those profits stay on Main Street.
Yeah. And I think that's something that has been kind of woven into the fabric of the cannabis and hemp industry. It's just that grassroots feel, these folks that are willing to, take the leap and be pioneers and what could be a volatile or dangerous space. They should be rewarded for that.
And now's the time to get into it too. I mean, people who are interested in getting into the business, now is the time, because the regulations still they're still fuzzy enough where the main money is on the sidelines. There's going to be consolidation that happens when actual money starts flowing in. And so if you can get an operation up and running, get it cash flowing, get a local brand. I mean, you can do really decent on a local brand,
absolutely.
For yourself. So why not go ahead and do that? And so I'd encourage anybody who's interested, who has an entrepreneurial bent and wants to, give blood, sweat, and tears to, building something, do it now, because it's, there's going to be a point in time in the future where it's a lot less, there's going to be a lot more certainty, and there's going to be a lot bigger money coming in, and it's going to be harder to compete. So,
yeah, Impressively so.
Yeah.
Now is definitely the time. And I think another thing that's woven into the fabric of the lead industry is also the consumer type that wants, as seeking, CBD or THC products is typically going to be looking for that local craft brand anyways. So
right.
I do think that, now's the time, get your name out there, get established at least locally, gain a following, and then, who knows what happens. Either you get bought out by a major player in a couple of years,
right,
on a beach for the rest of your life, or
I guess so. I think it's entrepreneurs when they do it. I mean, I didn't. We're doing okay, but I didn't do it because I wanted to, go lay on a beach somewhere. I think I'll die with my boots on. I mean, and a lot of these guys are like that. They're just gonna want to. They're definitely just going to want to, they like to build. So, interestingly enough, when you're a builder, you have other builder people around you. They just an attraction type of an issue, and and they're going to build with you. So you really do. If you're a builder, you're starting out, you want to attract those other builders so that they can partner with you. Some people who are going to believe in the business. So yeah, I mean. We have a couple podcasts we did on that, just kind of, how to start a business. And, I don't know about you, but it has a very hard thing to do, getting the right people attracted, getting the right people, all moving in the right direction. So, there's sometimes the best of intentions and your best judgment. Sometimes it's wrong. I've had that a bunch of times, so
right. A killer idea or product. And if you don't have the right people in place.
Yeah, so something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move a little bit into Extract Lab. And kind of. So I know, a lot of folks online probably know this too. You guys are making extraction equipment,
right?
So with a focus on supercritical CO2, it seems, and then also some kind of post extraction process remediation, and refinement tools,
right?
And so for you, having your chemist background, and then jumping into kind of the plant side of things, this partnership with Vireo Health and all that, what led you to the point now where your kind of main, let's say, focus, or at least presence, is dedicated to the equipment manufacturing side of things? Was that just a lack of other equipment on the market? What made you decide that would be the right place to be instead of just focusing, let's say, wholly on the operational side of the business and the side of the business?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. So really, rewind the tape to 2014. Mm-hmm. I'm a chemist, that. And we were trying to build a pseudo compliant GMP facility. In other words, we wanted to make sure that all of our formulations were the very minimum food grade, and we were trying to make it into a put the right processes, the right people, and the right equipment in place, really to comply with like a Part 111 standard or something like that. Okay, which is a GMP standard. So we went and read all those regulations and said, okay, well, we're going to go towards that. I started to look at the different technologies. At the time, basically what you had was Apex Eden and Waters out on the market. Ethanol wasn't being done in any kind of major way. And then you had Precision out there. They were doing like, the butane and propane and all of that. Well, I went and I toured everywhere, looked at the different pieces of equipment that were out there. And, Waters has kind of exited the market, but I thought they were best in class at the time for the CO2 side. And I saw that I could also, the equipment and the techniques that were out there were very slow. So I'd have, maybe 6-7 hour run times for 8 kilos, that type of thing. And I did the calculations given our grow and what we were projected to grow. I'd have to have a lot of those machines in there, a lot of power, a huge footprint. And Waters was kind of almost exiting the business at that time. So they weren't really viable. So what I did was I bought a reactor with jacketed reactors that could go down to -80 degrees, which was Labo. And we started doing ethanol extractions at that time with really low cryogenic ethanol extractions.
Yep.
At the time, we couldn't make the numbers work versus CO2, and I think that that's still the case today. If you really look at, for example, recovery of the ethanol and things like that, and the cost of the CO2, we're paying 4 or 5 cents a pound. It's really difficult to make the numbers work. So what we ended up doing was building our own CO2 extraction machine at that time, and kind of abandoning the ethanol extraction, which is really interesting because we started at ethanol and then we moved over to CO2. Didn't even look at distillation at the time. We were doing winterization, and then we were using winterized product, and then that would go right into an HPLC system that we made, which was essentially we bought it used on the market actually, and then we would pack our own columns, and we would do the separations of CBD THC. At that time, we were growing like a lot of 50-50, like a Cannatonic or something like that. So half of it would be CBD, half of it would be THC. I'd like the genetics to do most of the work, so you're taking out a small amount of THC, or you're taking out a small amount of CBD. The separations are a lot faster. Okay. But we started there, we started to separate it out. So that's how we kind of came at the need. So the need was really to have a scalable, fast CO2 system that was small in footprint that we could fit into our building, and and it wasn't available on the market, and so we made it. That's what we did. So we started off with the small cylinders, and then we graduated up, and now we're at our machine that we have right now is about 840 pounds a day you can run through it, which is fairly easy, and they're small enough where you can put them side by side and you can get tonnage out of it. So that we kind of built it up that way.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so what are some of the other, I know you mentioned kind of the operational costs. Sure. Now I know that ethanol is quickly becoming kind of a more dominant, let's say, solvent used in the extraction processes for both THC and hemp industries. So what initially made you so bullish on CO2?
Yeah, it was the cleanliness of it, and then the cost. The cost was just, they're just no hands down. If you look at the two different operating models for operating costs, the ethanol is just much higher on every level, on energy efficiency, and also solvent recovery, and that's really where you're really starting to, even if you're using denatured solvents, you're still talking about cumulative costs over time. A lot of people that are heavy, that are very onerous. Okay, so a lot of people look at the situation. They say, oh well, I can get a 1 ton per day setup for a couple $1 million with ethanol, or a 2 ton per day setup, and it's going to cost me $4 million for CO2. It's going to cost me more. But you're really taking the operating costs then, and when you add in the operating costs over time, you'll be able to see very, very clearly that my profits are going to be less because I'm operating at a higher cost, even though I paid less for the equipment. So and we have a calculator online that shows really the crossover point in time that you would basically break even on a CO2 versus an ethanol solution, and then also show you how those operating costs are really broken up. So just for people who are curious, that's an available resource to you, and you can put your own assumptions into the calculator, which is really great, and you can move the calculator around. So that kind of just will tell you, okay, here's what it is. So I think a lot of people get involved with the ethanol right away because the upfront cost of the equipment is a lot less. Yeah. And so they're thinking, oh well, I have a lot less, but then they're taking the added cost of the operating cost over time, and which is lowering your profits, which is lowering your cash flow, which is lowering the value of your business. So that's
there's also. I'm sorry. I'll just say, do you think there's also an element of an education that has to happen there too? I think ethanol is typically viewed as, it's easier It's,
right.
You have to have less of a chemistry background, if you will.
Yeah.
It kind of has that, it carries that stigma. And so people are
right.
quick to jump to ethanol. It's like, oh yeah, it's just like a quick ethanol wash like they used to do back at home when I wanted to make
right.
some mash. So larger scale, right?
right. Well, I saw a lot of these guys that originally started with, like ethanol in a washer machine, essentially, or a tea bag or whatever. They just stick it in there, they get it out. So there's ways to do it. It's easy to do. And Rick Simpson oil, I mean, heck, that's been around for decades, right? So it's it's old. Interestingly enough, just as a side note, I have a really old book on cannabis and how to prepare it, and I looked in there, and they were cooking cannabis buds in benzene on the stove. I gotta take a picture of it and send it to you. It's pretty amazing. Please. So it's a lot of fun.
What not to do. Safety course or something like that,
right? Well, even today, though, you look at it. I mean, we it's not too long ago, just like last month, we had a huge explosion in Los Angeles. So that investigation, we're watching that, but there's been fires and everything that has taken place with flammable solvents, and you got to be careful with them. You got to know what you're doing. That's why you guys exist, right? So and you keep it safe.
Yeah, and it's also just like a passion of mine to get the education out there to start doing this at a home scale. Because I still think there's so many people that are doing this just at home.
Right.
Especially in emerging states and things like that. They're like, oh yeah, I got my closed loop system. I can put a hot plate down and just
put a hot plate down. Then next thing they know, they got a flambe going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I from personal experience, that could be a dangerous dangerous process.
Yeah. Have you ever made bananas Foster? By the way,
I have.
Okay, I'm talking about.
Of course. Oh yeah,
that's the best.
I'm French. I mean, my name's Xavier.
There you go.
All set. We love taking our alcohol, lighting on fire, and pouring it on sweets at the end of dinner.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I don't like flaming shots though, because I feel like dangerous, and you get ended up like lighting your mouth on fire.
Right. That's not good. That's not good.
So I'm going to ask you another question about kind of the extraction process. A little bit more on the post-extraction process, I should say, and remediation. The last webinar I did. So what I've been doing is kind of setting up my audience and whatever regulars want to attend with different sort of education and knowledge on specific processes. And we spent a good amount of time last week talking about distillation. Post-extraction remediation. And so we covered thin film and short path distillation. I actually drew some inspiration from an article that you had posted comparing the two on LinkedIn. And so I wanted to see what your thoughts were on kind of different distillation processes. If there is a benefit to, let's say, ethanol, CO2, hydrocarbon, which one lends to easier remediation down the road, and just kind of help folks understand kind of which distillation process or what kind of equipment you find to be the most efficient for your operations, but also for some of your clients.
Right. Well, okay, let me see here. So in terms of distillation, you got a couple different options. First of all, if you're doing ethanol, obviously you're going to have to take that ethanol out of out of your oils, right? So that's one type of distillation. People typically use like a falling film, or they'll use like a rotovap. So you got to have you got to make a decision. The rotovaps are very effective. They work perfectly. The only issue with the rotovap is that it's not continuous, and if you have a lot of materials, it's not going to really work very well for you, because you're always going to have it's going to take. And then if you do chromatography, like we did in the very beginning, like in 2015 when we were doing it, we had like a 24-hour shift of people coming in and taking the ethanol out of the rotovaps and then putting more, it was just a huge bottleneck. Okay. And then, so then falling film systems started coming out when people needed more, more ethanol out. So that would be, that would be great too. A lot of the falling films, interestingly enough, that are out there, they say like they're 40 or 50 or 70 gallons per hour. Yeah, that's true. But they're not continuous, like they're batch. So they go, they're kind of like, okay, you run it, and then you have to, change something, and then you run it again, and then you have to change something. So they have to do like 2 or 3 passes. Okay. So, you know, that's some of the falling films are like that. Now there are also falling films. There are different types of them. There are ones like ones that have tube and tube, and then there's packed bed ones. Those are like fractional falling films. So yeah, so that's really what you do. So the first application would be removal of the solvent, and if you guys are involved in any kind of you know, isolate production, for example, or if you're involved in any kind of, you know, ethanol extraction or winterization for your CO2 process, you're going to be having to deal with how in the world am I going to distill the solvent out. So that's kind of the first application of distillation within the process, right? So, and I'm sure you guys, I mean, the equipment that you would put into a C1D2 or C1D1 room, what do you guys recommend for those types of situations? Yeah. So suppose I have a rotovap, does that need to be in a C1D2 room?
Yeah. So C1, well, ultimately it's going to come down to the jurisdiction. Some folks let you get by with like a kitchen style fume hood, or even just a fume cabinet and not like a full walk-in booth, depending on the you know, the quantity of the throughput and the amount of chemicals you actually have involved in the process.
Right.
So one thing that our booths are good for is for actually creating control areas in the facility and upping the maximal allowable quantities of those specific solvents. So, you know, if you are doing, you know, enormous throughput, you have, let's say maybe a falling film system, you're constantly running it, there's a lot of ethanol involved in the process, that might warrant having a C1D2 booth. And so a lot of the time, it also depends on kind of the specific SOPs and the processes for that operation. I think a lot of folks are pretty good about maximizing their recovery and minimizing the amount of, you know, vapors or potential spillage that might happen in the environment around it. And that's really what our booths are designed to do, is to, you know, prevent, in the case of catastrophic accident, let's say a massive ethanol spill or something like that, actually have buffers in place to contain that spill.
Spillage, like on the spillage for on the if you spill it on the floor, like the whole booth is itself a secondary containment. Is that what you mean by that?
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's sweet.
Exactly.
That's
so if it were to, you know, if that were to ignite, all that liquid would be contained in the booth. You wouldn't have just, you know, flaming liquid running rampant throughout your facility.
Yeah, yeah, right. You can't see that ethanol anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it can be dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of learned that early on in my career. It was like, what is that burning on my arm?
Too, right?
Oh yeah, the vapors too. Yeah, so
you can get we have specific ventilation for that.
Kind of a follow-up question for you on that.
Sure.
It would be, look, suppose I buy a rotovap from say one of the purveyors out there. Okay, I can pay for a UL listing, but it's not C1D2 compliant. So what do people do with rotovaps if I'm using rotovaps in, say, you know, production? How does that work?
Right. So obviously, you know, the entire space is derated as soon as you put a component inside of it that's not matching that same electrical rating.
Right.
So it depends on the specific use of that technology, but I think a lot of the time what we're seeing is that we do have actual like penetrations and panels that actually run wires and conduits through to protect as much as possible. And again, it's the internal components that aren't going to be C1D2. And so that might make more sense to put inside of one of our fume hoods, for example.
I see.
Which has the ventilation, the spill control, but it's not necessarily going to be a walk-in booth where the entire space has to be rated. But there's a challenge, right? Is finding the right equipment. And I think that's something that actually excites me a lot about the industry and kind of the years to come, is as we start to see more and more equipment develop specifically for these processes that do need to meet these electrical ratings, or have, you know, kind of specific modifications that make them better for cannabis and hemp applications. And so,
hey, I think one question that I had for you was, what's the standard for the height on the berm? Is there a standard? Like if I okay, you know what I mean? Okay, suppose
the door threshold.
Yeah, well,
there is a standard.
I know that, but I'm wondering what, you know, was it okay? Because I had calculated it one time for one room, and I was like, okay, we need a 3 micron berm because the room was so huge.
Oh, okay, right. So the amount of spillage would kind of So
I was like, okay, well, this is stupid. Okay, so but you know, just put a couple pieces of tape down there and you got it. That was my
No, so our booths, because they are kind of more controlled spaces. Like for example, you know, we have an 85 square foot, and then we go all the way up to 355 square feet, and so yeah, depending on the size of the room, obviously the spill controls are going to be different, but it also affects the amount of allowable quantities of those chemicals that we have in those spaces. And so typically we're using, door thresholds. About 3 inches is usually best.
Okay.
Just because that helps with splash too.
Yeah.
You might have the spill that can happen.
That's a lot.
Slowly. Oh yeah,
3 inches is huge.
Okay. That's tough with ADA compliance too.
Okay. So that's like a 55. If you have 800 square feet at 3 inches, that's like a 55-gallon drum or something like that.
Yeah, that's a massive amount. That's a lot of ethanol in there.
Well, that's a lot. So that's a lot.
That's why it helps increase the allowable quantities. It allows them to have a lot more chemicals available, and then up, of course, their throughputs and have better production in general for the facility.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So. And that's something that we're just releasing now. I think as folks adopt different practices, we start to see kind of different amounts of ethanol being used or different equipment that's able to contain it better. But ultimately, the design for us is to prevent any sort of catastrophic failure from further affecting the facility or causing harm or injuring employees. And so.
Okay, I got one other question for you. Sorry, I know this is your interview, but okay. Suppose I have a suppose I have a Rotovap and I want to put it into a hood and I want to use it in production. Okay. So I have my Rotovap. It's in production. Okay. And I have it on a bench or something like that. Or even in a hood with a sash on it. Okay. Are there any requirements for that hood? I mean, other than if I buy one from Lab Conoco or from you guys or whatever, what are the requirements for that hood if I'm going to use, say if I'm going to use a 25 liter, it's going to be a walk-in hood. There we go. What do I typically buy? What do I look for?
So typically what we're looking, you'd want basically a sachet hood. We have a hood line that's like that. So they're not walk-in booths. They're just little hoods that you can actually pull the sachet up and those are C1D2 as well. So the main thing in there that we're looking for again is that spill protection and the ventilation.
I see.
And so
you're just looking to take it out so that in the room you're not dealing with a lot of vapors.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And so when an employee sticks their head in there or is changing out that Rotovap flask, there's not a bunch of fumes just being inhaled by that employee. And so there's not really specific requirements. It really comes down to the size of the equipment itself. I think is probably the biggest factor there when it comes to the type of booth you want to use and what that table looks like, what your setup looks like. And so we have like a 25 square foot one, but then we also have a 55 square foot one for some of the larger productions. Which 55 square foot hood, that's a pretty large hood. And so it just depends on that specific operation. And Burns, I was like, I saw my name pop up and I forgot that we had switched profile there. I was like, I didn't just type that. How did that happen?
Thanks for that, Andy.
Andy, I really appreciate you always contributing stuff. I think it depends on the operation. And then the thing is that you can find equipment out there that does match that electrical rating. Okay. And so if you are in a jurisdiction where like I'm dealing with a lot of folks in Missouri right now, for example, it's a brand new state. A lot of the fire marshals and the local jurisdictions have no idea what's going on. They feel scared about folks moving in and setting up cannabis extraction facilities. And so there's a lot of education that has to go in there. And sometimes in those jurisdictions, we see them be a little bit stricter with what kind of equipment and what kind of electrical ratings and what kind of setup they want to have in a specific space. Luckily, a lot of them look to pre-existing regulations and industries. Unfortunately, a lot of the time that's going to be like, California, some of the more stricter jurisdictions. But it typically comes down to the specific regulators and AHJs in that space. What kind of equipment they want.
It really does have it really does come down to, how your guy looks at everything. So it makes sense. Yeah.
And we have some jurisdictions where, they might as well be open blasting. And then some other ones where, everyone has to be wearing hazmat suits.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah. And so with CO2, because, that's kind of what you guys are focused on. What's the future of supercritical CO2? It's a technology that's been around for a long time, namely in lab applications and kind of some other. I know I saw I went to the Celestial Seasonings tea factory here in Colorado once, and they were doing
Mm-hmm.
caffeine remediation with CO2.
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of see being the future of CO2 in cannabis? Is there evolution with the type of fractions and, different pressures and things?
Yeah, I think that, when things hit production, in other words, when technology hits production, typically all the frills are taken off of it, and people are looking for a couple different things. They're looking for reliability. They're looking for, throughput or scalability aspects to it, compliancy. So, I mean, we've kind of come a long way from the standpoint of, when the industry first started out, to basically where it is today. There's been a lot of innovations in the supercritical CO2 world. I mean, we typically talk about 1 hour run times. We don't usually talk about, 6 to 10 hour run times anymore,
right.
That type of thing. And, methods, there's still, old methods and new methods and things like that coming out, but there's also hybrid techniques that are, a lot of people are talking about these days. And that has to do with like, a lot of people are, for example, using co-solvents. So, they'll use a co-solvent like ethanol, for example, with the CO2. We did that right in 2014. We were doing that, and all of our equipment has co-solvent pumps on them for that purpose, and also for cleaning purposes. But I think that if someone wants to eke out another 10 minutes, shave 10 minutes off their runtime or something like that, that's available to them.
Okay.
I think that I did a talk on this a couple weeks ago, where I took and looked at all the different techniques that are out there, along with all the different solvents and all the different new things that people are publishing on, like ultrasonic and microwave and all this stuff. Okay. And I calculated the number of permutations of all of those things put together. And it was something like 630,000 different permutations of different methods. And, it's just ridiculous. So professors are going to have a fun time from here until they got an infinite amount of work coming up with new things that they're going to publish on. And then people are going to read the literature and say, oh, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? The deal is that it has to really, from an academic standpoint, where a lot of the new stuff comes out, to actually bring it over to a commercial product, that's a huge leap. And, for example, if I'm a professor, just, all I care about really is whether or not it's new, if it's unique and novel in the marketplace, and I need to eke out some advantages. Okay. But they're really not looking at it from a consumer standpoint, or from even a cost operational standpoint, right? They don't care about any of that stuff. It's just, wow, it looks great. Here we did a method, publish on it, and I'm going to go on to the next thing. Yeah, it's something new. And they got 632. Yes, and I got 632,000 of those permutations. So I'm just going to go on to the next one, because it's too much work to actually commercialize it. Okay, so I'm probably a little. Let me see here. I'm a little bit more. How do I say this? I'm more commercially oriented as a scientist. I think that the new and greatest and latest stuff is wonderful and everything, but it's really hard to beat. For example, I'll give you an example, like microwave and a cal rod. Okay, a cal rod is a very inexpensive way to exchange heat in a heat exchanger. Okay, to add heat to a heat exchanger, as opposed to a microwave, which has all this apparatus and it's more expensive and so on and so forth. But they ultimately do the same thing. You're heating up a fluid from 25 degrees to 50 degrees Celsius. Okay. So so it has to have some sort of, really, benefit, like a 10x benefit. So when I look at the future, I look at kind of larger systems, more efficient systems in incremental improvements, like small baby steps, like, oh, wow, okay, here I'm shaving off 5 minutes off the runtime. Here I'm shaving off 2 minutes at the runtime. And that's really how all instrumentation, scientific apparatus, even in the, oil and gas, it's all just baby steps all the way to, to something that really works and it's hard to argue with. So, I'd encourage people just to take a real close look at their operating costs. Okay. and especially their ethanol budget, and just kind of, make some decisions there, because, the people who are out there doing CO2, they just have such a cost advantage.
Yeah. Right. Beyond that initial setup cost, once you get that going.
Yeah. There comes a point, like within a year, you're going to have a crossover point between the two. Yeah. Wow. It's that quick. Yeah. So it's typically, if you pay $4 million for a 1-ton setup versus $2 million for a 1-ton setup, they'll cross over sometime around month 8 or 9.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. So the slope,
like 2-3 years.
No. So the slope is quite high. So, and you can kind of jiggle out your assumptions there a little bit, but at the end of the day, when I think about the future, I think of things that have to be specifically meet the criteria of commercial operation, and so I see it more incremental, and the professor's going to professorize. They're always going to come up with something new. There's always going to be technologists in the market who start to talk about it. There'll be some buzz, and then there'll be a little startup company trying to make it on trying to eke out a 2% advantage. What's the point? It's not going to happen. So if you're a startup company in the equipment business, I've been in that business for over 20 years now. And I would say that you have to have, order of magnitude, improvement,
to really
very minimum to make a splash. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Or a lot of money for marketing.
Right.
That will also help you.
Even if it's not revolutionary, as long as we make it sound revolutionary.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So exactly.
Great. Okay. Well, so I know we're kind of getting close to the end of the hour here. So I wanted to start to wind things down. That was, you obviously gave us a lot of wisdom on kind of starting your own business, and also kind of what brought you to the space, and your opinions on the different solvents and why CO2 is something that you're very bullish on. Any kind of other initial business wisdom you'd like to share, to folks that are maybe starting out with a manufacturing license and don't know what they're doing really, or, early pioneers that are excited to make the leap and
okay, here it is, guys. No problem at all. Look, okay, so scientists typically want to hire other scientists. So if you are the scientist bent and you think, hey, or a technologist bent, I'm a technologist, you're going to get a bunch of technologists, you're all going to get together. Okay, you have to have a sales guy. You have to have sales, right? You gotta have them. I mean, a scientist got to have 1 or 2 of those for sure.
Well, then you're a professor, right? If you're not, you're doing the formulations.
Yeah. So I mean, but a lot of times I've had we've had different customers, and the scientists like, okay, well, hey, we got a nice facility, we got our scientists here, we got everything, but where's our customers? And well, how many salespeople you have? Oh, we don't have any. Well, how are you supposed to really win there? So you got to find a sales guy who's not only motivated by money. And you can tell that just by listening to them when they talk. So you got to have someone who believes in the company. And I'm just talking to the entrepreneurs out there. If they're always looking, if you can just tell if they're always calculating their commission checks and stuff, you get the wrong guy in your organization. You need to have someone who's gonna put their blood, sweat, and tears into a startup, because that's really, really what's required. Okay, so make sure that you find the right sales executive to help you. Also, you got to have hunter gatherers. You can't have passive order takers. And that's why I like you, Xavier. There, you're good on that. So you got to go out and kill. Okay, you as a small company, you cannot sit passively back and just wait for the phone to ring, hoping that someone's going to call you. It didn't work that way, does it?
No.
So no, you got
for a little bit. Depends on the product, but it's not.
I mean, even then, you got to have the right people calling too. So anyway, those are some things. I mean, focus on that sales function, continuously grow it, and the technology will follow actually the salespeople, because the sales guys are going to be feeding back and saying, hey, well, here's what we're learning from the marketplace. Okay, so anyway, I'm a technical person. I've kind of gone through all those things. I think I fell in every pothole, every trap possible when it comes to salespeople and all that. And so, and even marketing side, don't go to a marketing firm. They're a total ripoff. Do not do it. They're going to take your money and they're going to do nothing with it. Look, you are going to be able to market your company way better than any of those guys. So get in, dig in, do it yourself, hire someone to just, once you figure out that you're doing too much and you can't do it, you know, like your own social posts, your own stuff like that, just go do it yourself. You don't need to have a marketing firm do that for you initially. It's, you know, and they just don't know the business the way you do. They don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to say anything about it. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, right. I mean, it's kind of like questions. Yeah. So, you know, you're always trying to, you know, like, okay, give me your watch. Tell me what time it is type of stuff. I mean, you don't have time for that. So anyway, so that's for the startups in the world. And then for the people who are actually operating, I would say, hey, look, you know, you got to really look at your operating costs, look at operational excellence. It does make a difference and it's a real deal. So you want to take and be ruthless about driving down inventory and inventory costs. Everything that lands on your balance sheet basically doesn't get taken away from your income. And that's a big issue for cannabis companies. A lot of people don't understand that. Where's all my cash and sitting, you know, in your vault? So you have to, you know, because it's in process, work in process and stuff like that. So you really need to take a look at the business. And then make sure you have a model, make sure you have a plan, business model, business plan. So by the way, we do have a pro forma calculator too for a pro forma business. It takes into a lot. It'll kind of model your cost of goods sold. So you can kind of, for an investor type processor or someone who's just getting started, it's worth taking a look at. At the very minimum, it will get you thinking about, okay, well, you know, where do I want my business to go? Where are my costs? How am I going to pound them out? Right now, that's a big deal because we're hitting into a time where there's going to be, well, there already is, you know, pretty stiff competition. And on the, you know, on either the bulk side or even in the brand side. So you know, you want to have a good cost position relative to what you're putting out on the marketplace. So that'd be my proposal for you guys.
Yeah. Wow. Very helpful. It sounds like you guys have calculators to do practically everything on the website.
Well, I've been busy boy,
build
you know,
a business application.
Yeah, you can go on there, you know, take a look. Well, yeah, that's why a lot of people like them. You know, they're free out there for you guys to use and just a service. So, you know, so things like that. Also, you know, and then, you know, if you need any booths or anything like that, or, you know, C1D2 rooms, this is your guy here. We'd like to put our equipment in his room. So
I like it.
Yeah, so we'd love to do that. In fact, we'll sell some of your equipment. I'm sure we have some up and coming stuff. We'll get some quotes from you guys and see if we can do some cross selling. So really good to
working with a couple of folks on your team.
Have you? That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. You seem to have some good people with you. So you're following your own advice, which is important too.
Yeah. And also, you know, we want our customers also to be as compliant as possible too. So even if they don't comply, they should really be thinking in the back of their mind, well, what happens if my fire inspector who it doesn't care, changes? Yep. Then you have a whole facility you have to shut down. So there's risks in that. So better make sure, you know, at least you understand the risks, right? Yeah. People who know what they're talking about.
The word of the month right now. So anyone that's not looking to the future and, you know, looking for CGMP, they're going to have a rude awakening in a couple of years.
Right.
Or even nearer term than that. So
all
very valuable advice. Well, last question I wanted to ask is just because, you know, the name of the webinar we decided on is Dabs with Dr. John, and obviously we're not taking dabs here.
No.
But do you consume? Do you have a favorite cannabis product?
You know, I have we just do CBD pretty much only. I'm kind of not on the THC side for sure. Just because you know, I'm always working, so, and it doesn't affect me very well. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I know that we had some R&D ones that we were making, and you know, it's like they must have had some, I don't know, stuff in there. I sat down on my computer and I was like, I cannot do anything at this moment. So it's just like, what am I going to do? So, I went back and I made sure, hey, look, you got to make sure that you're not, don't have too much in there. And, yeah, it's a little, for me, that's, some people are very high functioning. Okay. That's not me. So, I don't have any functioning going on. So, but, the CBD stuff, I like the, CBD hemp pre-rolls. I like those. They're really great. I like, tinctures. I like the gummies. Of course, I go to sleep if I have too many of them. So, and I just started. Our number one product selling is hemp, basically muscle rub, things like that. Okay. So that stuff actually works. I had some pain in my neck and I put it on there. It worked pretty good. So a lot of people use it for that. So anyway,
that's great. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of CBD products. I used to consume a lot more of the THC based things, but I'm like you, where now it's like, as work is picked up and kind of got to be on call 24/7, it's hard to take a break. And,
right.
Plan it, but
it turns out that it's not 4:20 anymore. We have to work at 4:20.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's more like 10:20.
Right before bed.
So.
Well, cool, man. I really enjoyed this.
Good talking to you.
Any other shout outs or mentions? Anything else you want to sneak in?
I think, okay. So a couple different things. You had mentioned distillations. We have that Fractron product. That's really awesome. That thing is just crazy. So, last week we did a podcast on it. And basically it's a solvent removal system, and it's got some great versatility to it. We also have a distillation machine called the ClearStill, which is it's a 2-stage distillation machine. It really works great. We've been kind of displacing in our own operations. We've been displacing our third party stuff, and it works great. We drink our own Kool-Aid. That's the best part of it.
So that's so valuable. Being able to test your own products.
Oh yeah. So Outlaws pre-rolls are on fire. Sure, they absolutely are. So Outlaws is one of our brands, and that's from the hip hop group Outlaws. So basically, we make all their pre-rolls and all their other stuff too. So nice. They're pretty good. So where was I? Oh yeah, so I was just plugging my own products and saying that we drank our own Kool-Aid. Okay. Oh, whatever. So I'll shout out to myself and our own products. But other than that, hey, look, I'm just really thank you for collaborating on this. It was fun, and really appreciate what you guys got going on, and wish you everything. And I guess we'll do some more business collaborations. Sounds really good.
Yeah, right back at you. And maybe we'll put together a webinar in the future when we have some other things to talk about. And
all right,
definitely looking forward to.
I have a feeling we could do this for another couple hours.
I know we could just hang out.
There wouldn't be anybody listening, but whatever.
We just chit chatting about the state of the industry and what we think about things, which is, I think, something valuable. So
sure.
Well, great, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. And got a shout out to both our marketing teams. Jared and Jamie have done a great job getting this set up, putting everything together. So really appreciate that from you guys, and everyone that listened. And if you do want to find that calculator, find some of the products that John's been talking about, extractlab.com, and that's EXTRAKT lab.com. And you can find us at extractionbooth.com or Hal Extraction on social media. Looks like we lost Dr. John there for his camera. I think
it looks like it went away, but can you still hear me?
No, you're still there. Okay, I can hear you.
Oh, that's funny, but it's like the camera. Okay, well, the camera battery died. Okay, we're done.
It's an appropriate time to cut the cords and say goodbye to everybody. So everyone else has a great rest of the day.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot.
All right, John. Cheers.
Yeah.